You say that since day one, that was the narrative that, Pac, he was the bad guy and Bad Boy and Diddy was the Saints. Now look, so, it's crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they made Pac seem like he just came out of jail, angry individual, looking to cause trouble, bullying these innocent, people from Puffy and Bad Boy. They don't want no problems, but Pac kept, and I guess it was if you think about it, it probably was a smart move on their side because they was like, let's not reply. They wasn't doing no songs back. They wasn't doing no interviews, talking back about Pac. They wasn't, so they probably purposely wanted people to believe that that Pac was crazy out of his mind and is a troublemaker. Don't say nothing. So it's a strategy that it worked back then. You know what I mean? It was working, during that time, but it came out. The reality and the truth came out.
Yeah, it's wild when you look at it now. Now look at Diddy.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You know what I mean? It's crazy. When you watch that documentary, one thing, from what I got from it, and just looking back at the industry, you know, fame can destroy a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because when you look at it, the way it was breaking it down, it was showing his life before the fame, his life before he got into the music industry. He was a nerd, really. I'll be honest, like he was a nerd. And it got to the point in his last days, people that didn't grow up in the 90s and the new generation, to them, he was a gangster. You know what I mean? So it changed him. Fame can change you. Money can make you feel invisible. The more money a person have, they can feel invisible because now you got people that'll do dirt for you for pennies. And it kind of, fame get to the head of the people. Because when you get famous and you have money and you have power, you can create your own world. You know what I mean? You can create your own world and, you can actually pick the people to be in that world, according to how you want to move. So you can pick the people that you say, this is a yes man, this is a yes woman. They don't agree with what I agree with, then they're not part of my world. So he was able to create this world, like many others in that industry that start getting money and power and fame. They create this world that they live in, and sometimes they forget the real reality in the outside world. They think because it's in a world, there's no accountability, they can do whatever they want, and so it's crazy. That's what I took away from it.
If you look at that documentary, Kirk Burrows, he even came on and said that he personally believed that Diddy was behind Tupac murder. And he was the former president of Bad Boy. So that's wild, bro.
Yeah, allegedly they say, that we've been hearing this for the longest. You know what I mean? We've been hearing this for the longest, and it's not something because the dude Keefe D kind of just ratted on everybody. He ratted on himself, and he said Puffy paid the money. He put it in the book. He put it in the book. He said it in countless interviews. You understand? And I always, we always heard about it. Allegedly, of course, because there's no concrete evidence, but you know what I mean? The people have been speaking about this for years. People who was involved. You know what I mean? Keefe D said he was there. You know what I mean? Keefe D said Puffy, paid the money. So this is something that's already out there. The documentary, like you said, his own boy said it. So it's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. I remember some years ago you told me that Diddy was a scary guy.
Yeah, he always been like, bruh, you know what I mean? I was around him on many occasions. So I know a side of him, that, I seen it. I seen when I snatched that mic from him at the MTV, I seen it in his eyes, what type of person he is. You understand? So I think that it's just a situation. He created his own world. And I believe Biggie, in my opinion, as far as dissing Pac after Pac dead, I can say he was guilty for that. But I don't really think Biggie had anything to do with any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Because the more you get older, the more you start researching, the more you start looking back at it, you start putting puzzles and the pieces of the puzzles together. And Biggie probably really was just a rapper, entertainer that got caught up in it. I always say he was wrong for dissing Pac after Pac died and get on a radio and doing these subliminals. But I don't think that he was part of anything, or that I don't even think he probably knew what was going on behind the scene. If it was some plotting, to kill Pac and stuff and pay for it, I don't think Biggie had anything to do with it. And God knows best. As we say, Allah knows best.
So you being around Diddy, that's the vibe you got, that he was a scared guy.
Yeah, I think he from the vibe, from being an individual in the '90s, from snatching the mic from him and seeing that, you know what I mean, his reaction, from Pac running into him and his interactions, like he wasn't an individual that would face anything head on. But you know, them some dangerous people though. You know, like a scary dude is a dangerous individual. You understand? So, because when you get money and fame, you can believe you're a gangster. You got the money now. Like, so, you know what I mean? You can just probably, he might have really thought at that where he was at now that he's just a real gangster because you got money, you can pay people. You know what I mean? So you never underestimate your enemy. Never underestimate your enemy. You know, I come from an area where I seen a lot of scary dudes do some dangerous stuff, and it was out of fear. You understand? So never underestimate your enemy.
It was a part in that documentary where Kirk Burrows admitted that, they use I Get Around as a template for Big.
Okay. Well, you know, it makes sense because you got to realize that, for example, a lot of, because Pac and Biggie had at one point had a very close relationship, and in this relationship, Pac, he used to say it to us plenty of times. I heard Pac saying that he kind of explained he kind of was explaining to Biggie how to make music for radio, how to make music. And Pac said, he said, when I first met Biggie, he had a song called Party and, something, you know what I mean? And it was like this upscale, song. And Pac started bringing him around, letting him hear the music he was doing with Thug Life. And that's when he said Biggie started switching up his style, you know what I mean? And started, wearing a Versace and stuff like that. So they got a lot of stuff from Pac, which, even Pac, when he was alive, he said that. He knew that, you know what I mean? And I think at the beginning, he didn't really care. He didn't even mind. I think that's this part of what made him was more painful and hurtful to him, because when he first met Biggie, he was treating Biggie like a little brother, you know what I mean? I don't know the age difference, but I know Pac was schooling him because he was already in the game. You know what I'm saying? So he wanted Biggie to win. You understand? He wanted Biggie to win, where he was saying, do songs like this and make sure your hooks are like this, dress like this. So I guess that's why it was really hurtful when everything started coming out and he felt like he was dissing him and stuff like that.
From your point of view, you being around at that time, I want to ask you, what went wrong between Pac and Big?
What went wrong? Yeah, Pac thought it. You got to understand, Pac was 25 years old, 23, 24 when he was going through that. You understand? So, and it wasn't no social media, it wasn't no cameras, it wasn't, you had to put the pieces of the puzzle together according to what he was hearing information from jail. And what made Pac really thought he had something to do with it was maybe it was a marketing, from like Bad Boy's standpoint of view, maybe it was good promotion and marketing when they told Biggie to drop the song Who Shot You. Maybe they thought that, like, man, it's going to be controversial, it's going to be marketing, and we can monopolize off it. But Pac looked at it like, this is no coincidence. They shoot me, I'm in prison, I'm hearing a song called Who Shot You? The song is talking about being an individual getting robbed and getting shot. And I think that was kind of fueling what Pac was already, thinking in his mind. You know what I mean? When you're 25 years old and you don't know who your enemies are, and you believe, you go to a studio, for example, and Biggie in the studio, Puffy in the studio, you get shot, now you're in prison, then there's a song called Who Shot You? So, you already starting to he already a little paranoid, you understand? So now, I think that was kind of, and then when he was in prison, people was telling him, Biggie and them had something to do with it. So I guess he ran with it. Ain't no telling what any individual who was in that situation would have done and thought, you know what I mean? Because people that are close to you turn on you all the time. You know what I mean? So I think for Pac sitting back, he said, man, these too many coincidences that he felt like something ain't adding up,
What you think about these celebrities coming out defending Diddy? I think Marlon Wayans, he came out and you left a comment on one of his posts where he was, defending Diddy. How did you feel about that?
I said something on his page. I forgot what it was, because what he say? He he said something. I kind of forgot what he said, that I kind of, really I commented, because it was just weird, you know what I mean? Because you Pac friend, you always going on these interviews and, Pac was my man and he changed my life. And you know what I mean? When you see something like that, of course, I'm not trying to say because Pac is your friend, you automatically gotta just, go with and believe anything or just stay out of it, because a lot of stuff is clear, from Puffy own boys, he hated Pac. You know what I mean? And if you keep saying Pac is your friend, he's my close friend, and you know what I mean? And if you saying this documentary where this individual allegedly has something to do with Pac death, you gotta, you know what I mean, stay out of it at least. You understand? But I guess he probably like, man, I think a lot of people just want to save face because they probably like, man, Puffy gonna come home and he probably gonna be searching who took up for him when he was in jail. I want to be one of the, I want to be part of his team. So he might see that I spoke up for him and give me a job. You know what I mean? Whatever these people going through, but everybody have a right of their own opinion. But I think when it comes to people that say they Pac friends, that's when I really say something. You know what I mean? Like you saying this is your boy, but now, you know what I mean? It's clear that you saying Pac was your boy, and it's clear that, you know, a lot of people from Puffy's side saying that they think Puff had something to do with it. Then come on, how is he really your boy? You know what I mean?
Makes sense. I came across an interview from a guy named Speedy where he was telling a story about how you try to put out a cigarette on a guy's face, and that almost led to everybody fighting. Can you tell me that story in detail? Like, I always heard bits and pieces of it, but I never heard the full story until this, Speedy
Yeah,
guy
shout
came
out.
out speaking about it.
Yeah, shout out to Speedy, man. I seen that interview with him and Edie. You know what I mean? Speedy was an individual. He probably was the first dude I ever seen do the crit walk and make it commercial. Yeah, like really though, like now it's commercial. He was the first one I seen in the rap video. I forget which rap video he was in, but he was doing the crit walk and kind of made it commercial. But Speedy was an individual from, back in the day, was well known in LA, and Pac had a lot of respect for him. He was affiliated, with the Crips. I don't know what well, I don't have to go in details of his hood and stuff like that, but he was affiliated with Crips, so he spent a lot of time with Snoop and him. But Pac felt, grew to love him and got real close with him when he was around us every day pretty much. So the story he was talking about is that we was in a studio one day, and they had this room that they used to call a whack room, when you used to go, in a small room in Death Row, and it's producers in there trying to put beats together. And it was some of the homies was in there. I think man, a few of them passed away. I think the one that I got into also got killed. I forget their names, but Slim Capone was one of them. Slim Capone was one of them, and I forgot the other dude name. I was a wild individual, bro. So we was freestyling, and I don't know, something just told me to put the cigarette out on his face. You know what I mean? So he probably had some bars that was better than mine or something. I probably just felt like he went in the freestyle battle. And I just grabbed him and started trying to it was actually a beanie, like these little small things they be smoking. And we was kind of tussling and stuff like that. And I went in the hallway and told him, come out, let's fight. And this is the hallway of Death Row Studio. And somebody ran and got Pac, and somebody got Snoop, because he was with Snoop and them, you know what I mean? And I was just wilding like, man, Pac gonna fight Snoop. Snoop was right there. And Speedy said, like, Snoop was like, ain't nobody fighting nobody. Edie, you gonna fight Daz. I'm gonna fight you, the dude I got into it with. Fatal fight and corrupt. Like I just started matching everybody up, you know what I mean? And like Speedy was the only one that said something. I think that's how we got cool, because he was the only one with it. Like, bro, what's up? Like, what's going on? Like, anybody want to fight? Let's fight. And then Pac and them started calming it down, you know what I mean? But it was a situation, and then we got close with Speedy after that, so it was one of the wild situations. And I think it was at a time, because it was some it was some fiction that that you start feeling in the studio after some time with like us and Snoop and them. We was always in this studio and they was always in that studio, and it just became a division. And I think when I did that, that was a time that we all felt that something was about to explode, and I wanted to make it explode a little earlier. I was young and wild, bro.
Who was the person you was trying to put the cigarette out on?
I forget his name. I think he got killed. I think he passed away. I think he was from Hawthorne, but he was with Corrupt in him. He might have been some artist or something with Corrupt. He never made it in the music industry. He might have been underground, but he was one of their homeboys. He was one of their homies, and But he was a small dude like me, so it was like a good match. It wasn't like, I was picking on a smaller dude. I was always a small dude, so it ain't matter the size. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. I probably had a little, was a little burnt out. I just wanted to fight, man. I was a wild dude. You know what I mean? That's why that Death Row studio was a ticking time bomb. You know what I mean? Because that might have been a dude named Time Bomb, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that joint was it was explosive, like it was, bro. You know what I mean? Now it makes sense why the security guards at the front desk wouldn't let nobody in there with weapons. Because I think people would have been getting shot up in that studio. Because it was a lot of fights. You know what I mean? It was a wild situation, a lot of fights, a bunch of wild young dudes in there, man, and it's probably one of the best things they ever did, but make sure that nobody bring a weapon in that studio.
The tension was that high around Death Row, yeah?
The tension was that high because I remember when we first got to Death Row, it was a lot. We was close. We would go play basketball like every Saturday at Snoop House, the Outlaws against the Dog Pound. A few times it was saying, I think Pac got into it with I think it might have been Little C Style. Shout out to Big C Style. You know what I mean? And Little C Style. I think him and Pac kind of got into it a little bit on the court. And so but that's natural. That was basketball stuff. You know what I mean? Corrupt dads. At the end of the day, we all was close like family, but I guess it was some fiction, which is natural because if you got these individuals that's coming around, it can happen in any family. Like sometimes you beef with your brothers and you don't get along with your cousins. You know what I mean? Your cousins, you might be from New Jersey and you got cousins from Virginia somewhere. When they come up with a different style and everything, a different culture almost, you're going to collide sometimes. So that's how it was. We was mainly from the East Coast, moved to LA, you know what I mean? But we kind of had some experience with LA. I remember, because the first time we ever went to LA, Pac was locked up and it was, I forget what year it was. And we got picked up by Runner, not Baby Runner, Runner. He's from the Rolling 40s and Pac had a very good close connection with him. So we was already always tapped in with LA dudes. So we was always learning the culture, you know what I mean? But still, we was East Coast dudes in LA. It's still going to be some fiction if it's a bunch of East Coast dudes. And not only that, when we was in the studio with Pac, it was a bunch of West Coast dudes with us. And it was a lot of tension for sure, definitely.
Just out of curiosity, to go back to that studio incident, why was you so determined to put out that cigarette on that dude's face?
I don't know, man. I think it definitely was the devil that told me to. Yeah. So I just said, just put the cigarette out on his face. And I really was trying. Like, it was a struggle because he was holding my hand. Stock for the lie, you know what I mean? But it was just one of them things, man, that, yeah, bro, I was in some dark days. For real though, like I used to think of some crazy stuff, and good thing he fought back. Good thing he fought back and started grabbing my hand because he was shocked. Like, yo, what's wrong with this little crazy dude, bro? You know what I mean? I just wanted to put the cigarette on his face, man. Something just told me to do it. Which now I look back, it was the devil.
When you was trying to get everybody to fight, what was their reaction? Like, what was Pac's reaction?
Yeah, like Speedy said, he had he analyzed it in a very smart way because he said something that I probably didn't pay too much attention to back then. But he was like, Speedy was like, there's no way a little homie gonna just be on the forefront like that because Pac is our big homie. That's our big brother. There's no way a little homie will openly say that if it wasn't already something boiling and going on. You know what I mean? Because he know my relationship with Pac and he got to really know it. So he was like, Pac had to be down with it. And now that I look back at it, Pac it could have went both ways. He ain't care. Because when it was over, he was just laughing at me, grab me. I just remember grabbing me, laughing like, "Move, you crazy." It's not like he was upset. Like, come on, man, cut that stuff out. Of course, he says, as Speedy recalled clearer than me, that Snoop was like, come on, man, ain't nobody gonna fight nobody. You know what I mean? But Pac wasn't saying nothing. I guess he probably, Pac was wild.
What was some of the, ticky tack things that led to the tension between y'all and, Snoop and Dog Pound and the rest of Death Row? We already know about the major incidents, but.
I just think it wasn't really nothing open. You know what I mean? I get it was just like sometime, as they say, 80% of communication is body language. You know what I mean? So 80% of communication is body language. And you know, you start seeing from body language that a person ain't really feeling you, or a person switching up. And you know, because when we first got to Death Row, everybody was in the studio with Pac and hanging around Pac, and you know, in the sessions. And then all of a sudden it was them. They would walk before they walk in their studio session, because we used to be in the front a lot. You know what I mean? So before they got to pass us to go to the studio in the back, they would stop in and say, what's up? Then it got to the point where nobody's stopping in speaking anymore. They're going straight to the back. And you know what I mean? It was a lot of, but you know, it was stuff happening behind the scene. Like, you know, Pac was in, I forget what country he was in, or I think it might have been Panama or Belize, where he got into it with Corrupt. You know what I mean? And so these things was being tensioned. Like so he got into it with Corrupt, and then Nate Dogg got involved in it. So these things was building up, because Pac would come back and tell us. You know what I mean? So now we looking at everybody, you know, so it's very tense. And they you know, they got some, like, don't get it wrong, don't get it twisted. They had a lot of, you know, they got some real soldiers with them too. You know what I mean? Like Trady, Big C Style. So they also had a team that they wasn't no cowards, like we was punking them, you know what I mean? But and they wasn't punking us, you know what I mean? But any given minute, it could have just went. And Pac was being more, he was more close with Suge homies, and so any given minute, like anything could have popped off.
I want to ask you. I came across an interview from Neckbone where he was telling a story about how Pac and Suge, they got into it in New York over Snoop comments about Big and Puff. He was saying that they were shouting at each other and yelling. You know anything about that?
Okay, yeah, I seen that interview. First of all, shout out to Neckbone. You know, it's funny because I spoke to him yesterday through Instagram, because Neckbone, you know, I remember him. You know what I mean? He was around, and that's a solid dude. I know a lot of people, they probably mad Neckbone talking, because a lot of these people who wasn't around Death Row and was saying a lot of stuff, and now Neckbone is around, they probably like, oh man, this, you know what I mean? It's a real soldier now who's speaking out. You know what I mean? And he's wise with it. You know what I mean? If you see the way he speak, he's wise with it. He don't really say nothing negative. You know what I mean? He's a positive dude. But I wasn't there when it happened. I think what he probably referring to, Pac was really hot, like heated, when he heard Snoop on the radio, like he's saying these my homeboys. He was furious, bro. So I think it was more like him screaming and going crazy, and Suge trying to calm him down, like, bro, calm down. I got you. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I think it might have been more than that. I seen him, you know, I seen Pac like one time scream at Suge. We was in Cancun, I believe that's the first time I seen him like quote an attitude with Suge, and like raise his voice and just kind of start walking away. And I remember Suge just, you know, put a cigar in his mouth and look down. But I think even some of his homeboys is looking, because that's probably was like their first time they seen like an artist kind of like you know, raise his voice at, you know, like was like raise his voice. And I think it was more like a big brother, little brother type of thing. You know what I mean? It was always that respect. And so I think Neckbone is talking about, you know, Pac was like going through it, like emotional and screaming, like he always, because people don't really understand, man. It was almost like they caught Pac from the blind side. Like it was just, he wasn't expecting that. You know what I mean? So when people always saying that he's a bully and he's calling to negativity, and now he's going against Snoop, like this dude got problem, they don't see the behind the scenes. You understand? They don't see that Pac is a loyal individual, and that's what causes death, being loyal by default. You know what I mean? So they don't see that he loving Snoop. He out there showing love for Snoop, and all of a sudden Snoop on the radio saying that it hurt him. You know what I mean? Like it really hurt him, where I guess he didn't see it coming. Like he was just blindly saying Snoop is loyal, looking at Snoop like down for the team, and maybe also because of the fact that Snoop was in the studio with him, dissing Biggie, loving Hit 'Em Up. I know now he said that he wasn't feeling Hit 'Em Up. Bruh, that's all talk. You know what I mean? He was loving Hit 'Em Up. He was loving us dissing Biggie. He was going with it with us. And then to get on the radio, Pac was like, yo, that's weird, bro. Like, it really caught him off guard. You know what I mean? It really caught him off guard. So it's one thing if you have your stance, like the Lady of Rage, for example. As you probably seen in that interview, and you might have heard in the past, she was a woman that even when Pac wanted her to diss other artists, she said, no, I'm not doing it. Her stance was clear. You know what I mean? She like, no, I'm not getting involved in your beef. These are I like them. Pac had to respect that because she was straight with it. You understand? So he had to respect the Lady of Rage because she ain't doing one thing, you know, in Pac face and doing something behind his back. She said, no, I'm not doing no songs dissing nobody. You understand? And she was firm with it. She wasn't a follower, basically. You know what I mean? So Pac had no other choice but to respect her. But I guess when he see you in his face dissing these people with you, like Snoop was doing, dissing all of them, and then get on the radio and say to my homeboys, that's what really made that's what hurt him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think Pac he asked her to diss Little Kim and Foxy Brown, but she didn't want to do it.
Yeah. She's like, I ain't doing that. And you gotta respect a person like that. You know what I mean? You gotta respect a person to have their own opinion. They do their own thing. They don't follow the crowd. So even Pac had to respect her. You know what I mean? Like, got nothing bad to say about her.
In real time, because you was in New York with Pac, did you know that Pac he was mad with Snoop over his comments?
Of course, we was right there, bro. Like Pac was, he was heated. I was right there. I think the only time, it was an interview that Snoop did a long time ago. And he was talking about how Pac sent me to his room to get something. I don't want to go into details, but I think that's the only time Pac calmed down because he needed to get something that Snoop had, something he wanted, but he didn't want to call, so he sent me up there. You know what I mean? Like, Moo, go get this from, and but yeah, he was hurt. I knew it. Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? It was just like, man, how they gonna, like, bro? He was furious. And you gotta understand, man. And I can see why. You know what I mean? I can see why. Because friends just don't do that. You know what I mean? Friends just don't do that. If you don't want to be part of it, you say it to Pac face, like, look, bro, I'm tired of it. You know what I mean? I don't want to go back and forth with these individuals anymore. Let's stop the beef. I'm gonna get on the radio. I think Pac would have respect that because he would have like, this guy's straightforward. You know what I mean?
So Pac he was really heated about that. What Snoop said.
Yeah, it was heated, bro. He was heated. He was, yeah. I guess it really caught him off guard.
Yeah, and I do remember Snoop saying that Pac was so mad that you had to bring him the weed.
Yeah, something like that. Like, he asked me to go do it, but probably Pac, I guess that was all he cared about at that moment. And then that's when he ran into Nas, and and that was a positive movement for hip hop at that time. That probably calmed the situation down a little bit.
I want to ask you, yo, because I always see people discussing this. The MOB tattoo that Pac had, what made him get that? Was that gang related?
I don't really, he never really opened up to us about it or what. We seen it, but he never told us why he got it. You understand? He never told us why he got it. Some say he got it because of his loyalty to, Suge and him. It's really hard to see because it's really hard to say because a lot of stuff, Pac could do things with his own reason. He probably don't even speak about it, open up about it. And I think that's one of them. I think that, I think it could have been him showing his loyalty. Like, these are the people that got me out of prison. These are the people that surround me every day, holding me down. But he never really went into details,
But from your point of view, he wasn't a blood or crip.
Bro, because that's, no, we can clarify because a lot of people ask that question. You know what I mean? So a lot of people, like, you hear some people that say he was representing the mob Paru. That's why he got the tattoo. And then you got other people. From me, what did I see from him? I never really saw him gang banging. You understand? I never really saw him saying, I'm a blood or I'm a crip, because he was too affiliated with people from both sides. Like Speedy, for example, he was an individual that we was very close with, that Pac used to say. Pac ain't really want us to get too tight with anybody, But he was like, I want you guys to spend, y'all need to kick it with Speedy and Whack Deuce. Whack Deuce is from Suge Hood, one of his little homies, you know what I mean? And then he was real cool with Psych. So I think he was just showing his loyalty. But people in LA might look at it like, no, he's representing the gang. So I guess it depends on the perspective of individual. Everybody's perspective might be different. To a person in LA, they look at it like you got MOB tattooed on you and you hanging with Suge and you a gang member. Some people might say he was yelling MOB in the Bay Area, you know, because they got their own slang. Myself, I never see him say he a blood or Crip. You know what I mean?
You know anything about the fight that Pac and King T almost had?
Yeah, I do. I have an idea from what I heard from Pac and like some of the members of the Outlaws, you know what I mean? And that's another thing. So from what I heard, what they said is that Pac was in LA one time and he had like a red bandana on it. And King T is a Crip, you know what I mean? Or affiliated with the Crip. And Pac had a red bandana on it. It was the early 90s. You know what I mean? This is when gangs were still tripping off of colors. And he said something about Pac with, you know, about his color and stuff like that. And Pac, you know, started going at it. And from what I heard is that King T went head up. Pac used to hang with this dude, man. He was wild, bro. He was, I think he was from the Harlem Crips, if I'm not mistaken, from LA. Paint was his name. You know what I mean? So Pac was hanging with Crips like Paint, Big Psych, you know what I mean? Manute, they were Psych boys, but they wasn't Bloods, you know what I mean? So I guess, you know, when he had that red rag on, King T had some words with him, but I heard it escalated and Paint wanted to fight him and they fought, they went head on. They went head up, Paint and King T, because Paint stepped in like, man, who you think you talking to like that? And he was a Crip, you know what I mean? So I think Pac was just, you know, when he was in LA, he was embracing both sides, really. He was around like Rated R, Runner, they rolling 40 Crips. He was around Big Psych. He's from IVC, Imperial Village Crip in Inglewood. Bogart was like, you know, security with him. He from Schoolyard Crips. And then he was real close with, you know, Suge homies like Neckbone and Trey and all them. He was around them every day. So I would look at it like he was just an individual that had love for both sides. You know what I mean?
What did Pac personally tell you about how to move in LA? I know when I interviewed Jamala, she said that he told her about the LA politics. What did he tell you?
He did, you know what I mean? Shout out to Jamala, that's family, man. Very good person, you know what I mean? You know that's Castro's sister, right, from the Outlaws?
Nah, I ain't know that.
A lot of people, yeah, that's Castro's sister. Also, Billy Lassane, Bill, a big shout out to Bill. That's also Castro brother. But from the Outlaws, they Pac big cousin. But what happened is when we went to LA, I already knew about the West Coast culture from, you know, whether it was the music, the you know, videos. But I got to give a big shout out to Big Psych because Big Psych was the only one, or maybe the first one, that really used to go into details about LA politics. From the first time we landed in LA, he always explained the politics to us. And it's an incident I might have mentioned on your show before, but it was an incident when we was in the House of Blues and some girls were screaming. I might have mentioned it before, and some girls were screaming and disrespecting Pac, and I said some words back and kind of cursed them out and stuff like that. I said some disrespectful words back, and I remember like these dudes got up, man. Them jokers looked like they were 7 feet tall, like you know what I mean. They got up and they just kept coming. And years later, I kind of ran into them a few times. They was from the '60s, you know what I mean, from the '60s hood. And when they started coming over, bro, when I said these jokers is big, I don't know how the LA jokers get like that. A lot of them just be on swole. And they started walking over towards me. And Big Sight got in between them and he calmed it down. And then I remember he had a serious talk with me. Pac was upset as well, but Sight was really explaining like, look, man, I understand y'all from Jersey or whatever, but on the West Coast, you never know whose sister you might be dissing. You know what I mean? He said, because pretty much everybody here is gang affiliated or grew up in a gang neighborhood, or her brother might be gang affiliated. And he was like, her brothers are killers. And he said, so You got to be careful. So Big Psych schooled us a lot on the politics on the West Coast, and Speedy, and Whack Deuce. You know what I mean? These are people that really, yeah, they gave us a lot of game. Thank God.
You had any other incidents in LA after that, or you knew how to move after that?
I knew how to move, but I had countless incidents, and I look back at it now, and I really thank God, bro, because it was so many times I almost got my head blown off. You know what I mean? Like, no, it was so many times I was in Compton when no rappers was going to Compton if they not from there. You know what I mean? Shout out to Risky, Risky from Death Row. I seen him the other day here in Dallas, but here was a lot of incidents. You know what I mean? That thank God, man, because we was moving reckless. I was moving reckless at one time, but I think one thing about me, I was able to I respect everybody everywhere I went, and I knew the politics of LA, and I respected a lot of people from LA, and I knew a lot of people from LA, and I think that helped me. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people from both sides, Bloods and Crips, and I think that helped me a lot. You know what I mean? But you learn when you're a young teenager. Sometimes you're invisible and you think no one can touch you and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But a lot of people in LA really schooled us. Real talk. I don't know if I ever told you the incident on your show about the Venice Beach.
Nah, you never told me about that.
This was one of the first incidents we got into as the Outlaws, where we didn't really get into it. This is we fresh from New Jersey, and we used to go to Venice Beach to play basketball. So it was Gaddafi, Fatal, I think Noble, and Castro, Edie, all of us. And we used to go there to play basketball, but we had like red like Nikes on. This dude had red Nikes, this dude had red. And the basketball court just got surrounded. Now, when you come from the East Coast, you see Venice Beach in Hollywood movies, you think it's just like a tourist destination. I don't know how it is now, but back then it looked like it. You see people on skateboards, walking dogs. So you think that you're in a tourist destination, right? So all of a sudden, they surrounded the basketball court, and now we feel some tension while we playing basketball, but we don't want to make it seem like we you know what I mean? We like, man, just keep playing. I think we probably would have scored like 300 points. We probably would have kept playing like because now we know something is up. When you from the streets, like I said earlier, that 80% of communication through body language. So we know they're not around us because they want to watch us dunk the basketball. They looking like, we don't belong there. So eventually, one of the dudes walked up to us. I guess he was like their big homie, their OG. And he was like, where you guys are from? We said, New Jersey. And he's like, I figured you guys wasn't from around here. You said, but you see the little homies over there? They was about to start lighting y'all up. He said, but something told me to come and talk to y'all first, because I kept feeling like y'all don't look like gang members. You know what I mean? And then he was like, this is the first time I heard something like that. He was like, this is Venice Shoreline Crips. I'm like, this is the first time I heard gangs representing shorelines. Because coming from the East Coast, when you hear somebody say the shoreline, you think you good to go. You on the shoreline. Ain't no you in a nice peaceful area. And that's when we started to really realize that it's real on the West Coast. And what's crazy, I was on my Instagram Live, and I said this story on my Instagram Live, and I got a DM from somebody. And I got a DM from a guy. He said I was there at that day. He said I was the youngest dude there. He said, and everybody else who was with us that day, they all got killed. He said I changed my life and I went to college, and that's what saved my life. And I was like, wow. You know what I mean? Deep, bro,
That's a good thing to hear, man. I'm happy to hear that, man, that he doing good now. So,
Yeah.
good thing, man. But I do want to backtrack to Jamala. You and the Outlaws. Y'all used to live with her, right?
Yeah, that's Jamala. That's family, man. She, like my name Moo, she was the female Moo. They call her Moo. You know what I mean? But Jamala was she stayed, if I'm not mistaken, she lived with us majority of the time in LA with us. She was very close with Pac. Even to this day, that's my family. That's like, she's an author now. She write books. Shout out to Jamala. She just sent me a few books for, like, she write kids books. She just always been a good person. Like, but she was around Pac. She used to hang with Kadada a lot, and she lived with Pac. Yeah, she lived with us. We all lived with Pac, and she was there.
Yeah, when she was on the platform, she said that, Pac, he would give y'all books to read, and he would ask y'all what y'all learned after y'all read the books.
Um, a lot of stuff I don't remember, but that do sound like some stuff Pac that sound like some stuff Pac. And if she said it, she definitely know what she talking about. You know what I mean? I think it probably would have been more like her and her brother and them. She said the Outlaws.
Yeah, she said the Outlaws.
Yeah, so yeah, that sound like something Pac would do. So I'm not, because I remember he did. Matter of fact, there's a lot of stuff I don't remember because of my lifestyle. I'll be honest. And then a lot of people would come up to me and they'd tell me stories and they'd be accurate like that. You know what I mean? But I do remember Pac did give me two books, and when he first came home from jail, he gave me the Machiavelli book and he gave me a book Art of War. And I remember he gave these books to me and said, Moo, read these books because this is what got me thinking on another level. And I never took it serious, because Pop used to always call me his protege, and I've never even took that serious. I never really understood what the word protege was until later, because he used to always say, this is Edie, my cousin Gaddafi, my brother Castro, my cousin, this is Muta, my protege. And I never really understood what it was. But, he was really, so he gave me them books and I never really took it that serious. I wish I would have read them and kept them. I wish I would have kept them. I don't even know where they at. You know what I mean? I wish I would have kept them. But I can recall that he did give books to read. I just never read them.
Yeah, she also revealed that Pac, when he went to Vegas, he wanted to bring his bulletproof vest, but Suge told him not to bring it. So, that's a rumor, that's been going around for a while, about Pac, wanted to bring his bulletproof vest. So Pac, he did wear one then. That's a fact.
He used to have one. I'm trying to think. But he used to wear it off and on. You know what I mean? He used to wear it off and on. So, because I didn't initially go with them to Las Vegas, so I wouldn't even know. But he used to wear the bulletproof. We all used to wear them. It was times that it was almost like a sport sometimes. Like we used to put them on just to put them on like an outfit. Especially when he got around death row. But it was on and off. It was just like some days he'll feel like wearing it, some days he won't wear it. You know what I mean?
Speaking of the Outlaws, Young Noble, he unfortunately passed away. Me personally, I still can't believe it, man. But how you feel about it, man?
Yeah, that's a sad situation about Noel, because it was out on it. People seeing on the internet. We had our differences, and we had some words, but I just fell back. I stopped like going back and forth with him because I realized he was behaving in a way that wasn't him. You understand? So I was like, this ain't really him. Something must be up. And then, unfortunately, not too long after that, he committed suicide. And he was really going through some mental health issues, which is it's a sad situation. You know what I mean? And it's one of them things, man, that you realize, like, man, it's not even worth having these petty arguments with people. If it ain't really something that's serious, because you don't know how much, time we got left, on this earth, you know what I mean? So to be arguing with an individual and then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, we got time, I'm gonna be able to, talk to him and squash everything. But then eventually you hear the word that he passed away, man, it just make you say, it ain't worth it. You know what I mean? So it's a sad situation. Majority of the outlaws are gone. Pac, Gaddafi, Fatal, Big Psych, Noble, myself, Edie, Castro, Storm. A lot of people be forgetting Storm, but Storm was an outlaw. You know what I mean? It's left. And then of course, you got people that joined later and stuff that, when Pac was still around, though, like Nutso, Whack Deuce. Like, I like to, give people their props. And even later on, Ace Rider, people like that came around. So, but life is short, bro.
R.I.P. to Young Noble. Yeah, I know he had an issue with that whole sound story that she told. He felt like it wasn't accurate, but yeah, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean? As that kind of spearheaded it. And it was funny to me because I'm like, bro, it's about a sandwich that you digested that sandwich 40 years ago. You know what I mean? So I was trying to tell her like that, bro, it's no need to go through it with the sandwich, man. And I guess, we could laugh at it now. And I'm sure if he was around, we'd be laughing at it together. Like, bro, really, you want to argue over a sandwich story? But you know what I mean? It kind of spiraled out of control, and yeah, it's sad, bro. And it's petty. You know what I mean? Like, don't take it that serious. But the sad part, I really thought that I was gonna be able to speak to him and be like, I'm gonna let everything calm down. I'm gonna hit him up, and but it was shocking when I heard, that he took his own life. For real, like it was shocking.
For the people that don't know the story, can you share it if you don't mind?
Yeah, this guy. Nah, yes, nah. It was about we was on a movie set, one movie set with Pac, and then Jim Belushi was the actor that just came in and he bit Noble's sandwich. You know what I mean? And and Noble was like, "What's going on?" And this and this and that. And I think I guess Noble might have got offended the way I told the story. Like he felt like I was saying Jim Belushi punked him. You know what I mean? And I think he took it that way when I wasn't really, saying it like that. He bit your sandwich and it but I guess he got offended. But it's the truth. That's something you laugh at. You know what I mean? I was saying the story like it was something that we laugh at. It was a funny thing, but I guess he really. But to be honest, like I said, it wasn't him. Like Noah was going through something. You understand? Like, because I said that story before and we spoke about it before. But unfortunately, from what I know, and I know his family is very private, they don't want to really get into it. But I think he had some health issues. He had some health issues in the past. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they put him on some medication that was like making him trip out. You understand? Because Noble ain't really, everything he was going through in his last days, it wasn't him. You feel me? So, and I guess whatever he was doing, that medication that was making him trip out, he was taking everything, small incidents, and it was just blowing up. And unfortunately, it's a sad situation. You know what I mean? He was married with kids and things like that. That's why I always say, man, petty arguments, it ain't worth it, bro. You know? Yeah.
Definitely not. But yeah, he did tell me that he was taking medicine, man. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy you told that story. Because I mean, the first time you told it was like years ago. I think I had like 50K subs, and now I got over 1 million. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of people that's, not familiar with that story, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You got over 1 million. Congratulations. Yeah, I seen that. Yeah. 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 He's missed though. Definitely missed.
I almost forgot, man. I gotta ask you. It's a guy out here that's coming out with a
Yeah.
book, or he's about to come out with a book. I forgot his name, man. I forgot his name, but I think he's an author, or he wants to be one. I don't know. I don't know, man. I think the book never came out, but he's coming out saying that Tupac can't fight.
Yeah. This dude, man. It made me sometimes wonder, where did these people come from? Honestly, like where do they come from? You know what I mean? Because I wrote him and I was like, man, I think he was a little, I forgot what I commented on something. I sent him a message. No, I commented on this page, and then weeks later, he's like, come on, man, you could have just, messaged me directly. And I did tons of research and interviewed dozens and hundreds of people. And I'm like, well, who's these people you interviewed? Like, who's these people that's telling you all that? Drop some names, because I want to interview them now. This is what I told him. Okay, let's share the people that you keep saying that you interviewed, because I think he just making stuff up, honestly. And his defense is, I did my own research and I interviewed many witnesses and many. But then when you start asking for names, he don't give you names. So it made me wonder, man, who is these people that just coming up claiming that he wrote the most authentic book of Pac, when it seemed like all he doing is bashing him? I even interviewed. I did an interview with him, because when he contacted me years ago, I don't know if he put it in the book, but when he contacted me years ago, he was like, I want to do the most authentic book about Pac, like making it seem like it's coming from a loving place. But then when I realized, and I'm starting seeing him in these interviews, it depends on what, platform he's on. If it's a platform that's pro Pac, he's pro Pac. But if it's a platform that's probably, neutral, he always go towards speaking bad about Pac. You know what I mean? And he got mad that I was in the comments clarifying something up, and come at me and say, but how you going? You should have just asked me. I interviewed all these people and all these witnesses. I said, okay, who? Name one of them. I want to interview them now. But he couldn't give me no names. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, he just really, though, bro, people just be making up stories and make up lies. And their defense is, I interviewed dozens of people. That's his their defense. You know what I mean? Some of the stories he talking about is 40, 50, 40 something years ago. Like half of the people 40 something years ago, are they still alive? Like who are the people? Like when he said that when Pac threw up the middle finger, what he said, that Pac apologized. He basically said like Pac was this type of dude that he threw up the middle finger, and when the guys asked him like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm sorry, man." At the medical team or something like that. And Pac didn't throw the middle finger up at the medical team. He threw it up at the cameras, the paparazzi that was coming at him. You know what I mean? And the paparazzi bounced. He didn't have no time to apologize. And when I told him about it, he said, "No, I interviewed the EMT and emergency medical team." I said, "Okay, what's their names?" He never replied. You know what I mean? Never replied. So, man, people just they want to make money. You know what I mean? They want to make money off of this stuff. And that's pretty much what it is to me.
I ain't hear about that one. So he's saying that when he put up the middle finger, he later apologized for it.
Yeah, he said something like Pac, it was just all like a facade. Like, Pac, everything. Even when he got shot and he had the middle finger up, and he do it at the emergency medical team, the EMT, and then later when he got into the thing, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry for doing that, y'all." But he doesn't know that I wasn't there, but I had people that was there that I still talk to today. Pac did that to the paparazzi because they started coming straight to him, putting, the camera. A couple days before that, at the courthouse, he run out spitting at the paparazzi. He had a hard week with the paparazzi, so he was just blacking out on them. And he getting shot, and all they coming trying to take pictures of him, he threw that finger up towards him. So he just be making up these stories. I don't know what's his agenda, honestly. You know what I mean? I think he has an agenda where you got to understand, because these people really be trying to push a certain agenda on people. And what they do is, like, he said even some stuff about Pac sexuality. You understand? Like, he trying to make it seem like Pac had some, bruh, everybody that know Pac, everybody that knows Pac, know that he was a straight man. So for you to be trying to twist, I wouldn't be surprised somebody say, who was the hardest gangster rapper in the 90s? Okay, he's not alive anymore. We're going to put millions of dollars to try to change his image, and let's put a movie out about him and say that he was gay or something, because they want to push this agenda on the people. You know what I mean? So I won't be so, bro. I ain't no telling who's behind who. You know what I mean? And so I think this just be like one thing I could say about Pac. He had family members that probably was a certain way, and he lived with them. You know what I mean? He wasn't going around saying let's harm these individuals or hurt people. But the stuff that you just putting on a person, if it was really him, then you could say, hey, that's really him. You know what I mean? So I don't really know this person's agenda and what he's up to, honestly. Where did he come from?
This is how you know that narrative about Tupac being gay is a lie. I mean, Tupac, he been dead over 30 years, and everybody possible came out speaking about Pac and telling the Tupac story.
Yeah.
Somebody would have been came out years and years and decades ago about Tupac being gay, if that was true.
Because it's not true. That's what made me sat back and say, what is this person's agenda now? You know what I mean? Because everybody have a right of an opinion. But when you trying to twist lies and push them as facts, it let me know something ain't right. You know what I mean? Under the guise of that this is the most authentic Tupac book. How can it be authentic when you never met him? You know what I mean? You're not going to really get authentic if you wasn't around him. You never met him. How can it be authentic? You can say that this is a book according to my opinions. I did my research, what I think, but if you haven't met him, it can't be authentic. You understand?
Yeah, it's all lies. I think this guy even said that Pac, he didn't get shot 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. I think I heard him say that.
Pac was shot 5 times, bro. And I was there with him when he was on Jasmine Guy couch recovering. You know what I mean? So the fact that they saying, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with people, bro. Like 5 times, 1 time, it doesn't matter. Like a person got shot, it's bad. You know what I mean? I got shot. I got a bullet grazed my foot as a 3-year-old. You know what I mean? It happens. You know what I mean? And people get shot. It's not something to brag about. But for him to say he got shot 5 times, he's not bragging about it. He really was hurt. You understand? He really was recovering. It was difficult for him to get up and walk. And I guess so would it make a difference if he was only shot 2 times? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. So why people want to say, oh, he wasn't shot 5 times? Even if he was shot 1 time, he was shot. And unfortunately, it changed his life forever. and it changed a lot of people's lives because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a wild dude, man. Weird dude, man. I remember you telling me years ago that Tupac can fight.
He's saying that, I guess he said that, I'm gonna tell you what I think he did. He did some research. It was some people in the Bay Area or something that Pac used to get into it a lot. And I remember they put out a lot. I never looked at it, but I was hearing how they was putting out all these videos like talking bad about Pac. And one of the things they were trying to say is he can't fight. You understand? That's what I believe he getting this stuff from, because, you know, it's a difference of say he can't fight according to who? You know what I'm saying? Pop, one thing I'm gonna tell the people, because I know Pop. It's different if even if, let's say he couldn't fight, let's say that, okay? Let's say he couldn't fight. He never turned down a fight. It's a big difference, because that means he had heart. You understand? So one thing about Pac, he not a coward. So by him saying Pac can't fight, I think he's saying that in a way to make it seem like he's a coward. You understand? That's what I think he's trying to push. One thing I know about Pac, he's not a coward. 100%, he's not gonna back down. If a person want to fight him, he's gonna fight, and everybody lose. Everybody can't win a fight. You understand? So if somebody put out a video saying I fought Pac and he lost, okay, Mike Tyson lost, Muhammad Ali lost. And these are real fighters, you know what I mean? So everybody can't win a fight. You know what I mean? So you ain't gonna run around and say Mike Tyson can't fight because he lost. One thing about Pac, so when they say that, I guess it's just to undermine him and try to make it seem like he's soft. You know, a lot of people say all that type of stuff, man. But one thing about Pac, bro, he not a coward. You understand? And I hung around cowards. And you know what I mean? I had a lot of friends who were cowards that I just say next question. You know what I mean? Pac ain't no coward. You know what I mean? He ain't gonna turn down a fight, and he's not gonna let nobody punk him. So for him to be, you know, it seemed like his whole book is an attack against Pac. That's what it seemed like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think this guy even came out saying that Tupac couldn't shoot. Oh no, man. Weird dude, man.
That was real strange, bro. You know, one thing about Pac, he probably was one of the few people in the hood that had an aim, because Pac grew up under the Black Panther Party where they was teaching them self-defense, how to handle weapon. Pac could take a whole weapon apart, a gun apart, put it back together. Like, he was very knowledgeable when it came to weapons. And he always stayed at the shooting range. You understand? So he put a lot of work in. He had a good aim. That's why I said, what is his agenda? You saying he can't shoot, and you know what I mean? Like, what is his what is his agenda? You acting like he's a military in the army or something. You know what I mean? And he can't, like, you judging him according to what are you, you know, judging him according to? The military? Maybe not. He's not a sharpshooter if you like he in the U.S. Army, but a person from the hood, he was trained, like, you know what I mean? He knew how to deal with weapons, he knew how to take them apart, put them back together, and he had a real good aim. You know? For sure.
It's even videos out there of him shooting.
Yeah, that was probably the first person I ever met, like, that put emphasis on, like, knowledge of weapons. I'm gonna be honest, because when we came from the hood and we was, you know, dealing with guns in Jersey back in the day, we didn't know what we was doing. You know what I mean? We didn't know how to shoot. Nobody sat down and say, this is how you shoot. Pac learned that at a young age from family members. So he was the first person that knew knowledge of weapons, like how to take them apart, put them back together, what type of guns, like, he knew about this stuff. You know, he was raised on that.
Yeah, this guy, he even brought up how, you know, a woman accused Tupac of rape, even though he was never charged or convicted with it. He put it in his book.
I seen him say that, and that's when I really started saying, what is his agenda?